Hi, good evening, afternoon, or morning, depending upon where you're from right now or where you're tuning in. I'm Deja, and I'm here with Miss Bianca Laureano, here to talk about intersectionality from theory to practice for the SASH conference coming up. Miss Bianca, how are you doing today?
Well, thank you for having me and interviewing me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. No, it's our pleasure. So we've got a number of conferences throughout the year, but this time we've got, a number of participants. What particularly interests you about participating this year?
Yeah, well, I know that SASH has been trying to move towards a more inclusive conversation on sexuality and sexual health. So that's one of the reasons why I chose to represent ASECT. I am the awards committee chair with ASECT for 2021 to 2022. And this is my first position with ASECT. And I'm a certified sex educator as well as a supervisor. So I thought it was a really great opportunity to include some sex educators into the SASH conference.
It is most definitely. Thank you for that. We're totally excited for the number of things that we have coming up and that we've been talking about. So please do tell us a little bit more about intersectionality.
Sure. So we're going to talk a little bit more about it during the session, but really I wanted to create this workshop because there's so many people who are misusing the term, and because it's a fairly new theoretical concept that was created outside of the sexuality and even public health field, a lot of people aren't aware of its origins, but also really how to correctly use it. There's also no class in our field for how to understand it, and that's one of the reasons why I created one 3 years ago. And this is really to help us not only learn about the new and emerging theories that are coming out that can really help us expand the work that we're doing, but also what are the ways that we can use a theory that's created by Black women, that's used by Black people, that can also recognize like how are Black people theorizing about their lives and about their experiences, and what can we learn from that? And this is something that's really important for me as a Black Puerto Rican, but also because this is how people are able to make sure that their work and their legacy is one that stays relevant and important. And for me, my hope is that people will learn a little bit more about intersectionality and then also be able to figure out why they're using it and how to use it properly in their work, but also be really well versed into explaining why they're choosing not to use it. And so it's not really a workshop to like encourage people to do something, except for learn something new, as well as be clear about why you are or are not using it, and then using it and applying it appropriately.
Yeah, most definitely. That, like, I can't tell you how important it is given, especially I feel like my generation, we just started like throwing this word around, right? You hear intersectionality everywhere, but everyone's not exactly sure how they're using it and how it applies and how it can be applied to advocate specifically in mental health and sexual awareness. So most definitely we need to talk about that roundhouse discussion. So other than the objectives that you listed, are there any others that you're particularly hoping the audience can walk away from after this presentation?
Yeah, I'm hoping that folks can really be able to understand that Black women have been theorizing about our lives for forever, and that that is a valid way to talk about the lived experiences that we have. And also for people to understand that, you know, intersectionality doesn't give us all the answers. It actually doesn't give us any answers. It just tells us where
Just
oppression
explains, right?
and when we don't recognize that and still want to focus on, you know, high-risk behaviors or problematic experiences, what does it mean that we're not really doing the actual work from people who are most impacted and being guided by their work, and still wanting to be in alignment in some way and talk about in some way sociocultural experiences, biopsychosocial, but really not focusing on the social as much as people do the bio and the psycho. And so that to me is a really important piece. I also hope that people will be able to realize that intersectionality offers creativity. And so, you know, when I say that, I don't just mean you can do whatever you want to or apply it in any particular instance, but I also mean that, it's up to us to find the answers. And that is an opportunity for us to become really, really creative in problem solving and in offering solutions. And so I think for a lot of people, they don't understand that. And they've never been offered the opportunity to hear that that is a reality of using an intersectional lens and also putting it into practice. So I'm hoping that people are able to learn a lot more and also have some of their myths and stereotypes about intersectionality debunked and addressed. And then also, have an honest conversation about when does intersectionality not work? And that's a conversation that people really aren't often having. And I think it's important for us to talk openly about why people are using it and drawn to it, how people are using it well and effectively, how people keep missing the mark and not doing it well. But then also, when should we not use it because it's not always going to give us the best outcome or guide us in the direction that we really need to go in. And those are really important conversations to have. So I'm hoping that folks give themselves the opportunity to hear a little bit more about that. And it's something that I love to do. I love the things that I love, I critique the most. And it's because I learn more about it and I feel a lot stronger in my ability to communicate well about those concepts, but also to implement them in a really substantial way.
Same, yes, most definitely. That's, yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I'm anticipating most about the fact that we're in a position right now where we're forced to be kind of stagnant or isolated in a sense, but we're still able to have, or at least here in this country, most of us still have access to so many things to be able to connect and network and still grow and learn in that aspect. So that's one of the things I'm really appreciative for. But speaking of telehealth, what about our current situation has presented, I guess, any benefits or challenges for you? And then what challenges or benefits are you expecting or anticipating due to how we have to carry the conference this year because of the pandemic?
Yeah, so I have been teaching online for many, many years.
Oh,
and
nice.
it's not so new to me as much as the conversations are new, I think, for the community to have. One of the things that I always, one of the things that like burns my biscuits is when people talk about, oh, the things are going to be so much more accessible because they're online. And for me, I'm like, accessibility isn't just about clicking on the computer link. Accessibility is about having captions, having ASL interpretation, having your outline clearly prepared, slowing your speech. There's so many things that go into accessibility for disabled people. I am a disabled person, and so when I hear people talk about, accessibility, and they're not talking about, economic access, they're really just talking about, a Zoom link is how you get in.
Yeah.
That to me is one of the things where I'm like,
Right, it's more than just Wi-Fi.
Exactly. And like Wi-Fi is not something that people in this country all have access to. And these are some of the things that I think are highlighted around social differences and challenges. Is that, what does it mean that we have people in parts of the Midwest or parts of just every part of this country that can't access a strong internet connection? How is that tied to like net neutrality and the ways that we want to make the knowledge that we have accessible to people?
Right. Most definitely. Thank you so much for joining us, and we anticipate hearing your presentation. Let me pull up the date here. If I remember correctly, yes, it is going to be Friday, October 16th, between 2 p.m. and 3:30, and we look forward to hearing more about intersectionality from theory to practice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.